Welcome, everybody, to the Heart Coherence Collaborative. Today is a very, very special day.
We're so excited to have our old friend, Matt Kahn, not calling you old, but meaning we've been friends for a while, and his lovely fiance, Joy Kingsborough.
Yeah, we couldn't be more happy to get to know Joy today. And I just want to say, Matt, it's been a pleasure to really become a good friend over the last few months. So we're excited to have you both with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, we did at the same time. That was good. Thank you so much. We love you both as well. Did you see the heart coherence in that? It was literally, I don't mean to brag, but here we go. That was.
We're feeling it.
I mean, everyone felt that.
All right, well, let's let everyone get into that same coherence. And we'll start by all of us diving into the heart. Mm-hmm. So if everybody could focus your attention in the area of your heart and imagine that your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area, breathing a little slower and deeper than usual. And try a pace of 5 seconds on the in-breath, 5 seconds on the out-breath, in and out through the heart. And as you're breathing in and out through your heart, I just want you to feel the strength of your heart, the power of your heart, the gift of your heart. Really give thanks for this heart, because as long as you have it, you have life.
And continuing that breathing pattern, breathe in some love and compassion for yourself, and then breathe out love and compassion to all of the people who are watching this virtually, especially those who really need some love right now. And we would like everyone to just continue this breathing pattern, and Matt and Joy are going to do a transmission of energy in the form of words that we'll all receive and breathe into our heart.
As we come into this conversation together today, it's an absolute honor to be able to, amidst all that's happening in the world, amidst all the things that's happening in your world, what you're feeling in your body, in your life, in your family, in your community, that the opportunity to connect with each other and to open your heart anyway, to be in an experience of releasing the fears, anxieties, tension, to move that out of the body, through the body, while also releasing and moving love. Noticing that love is always present with any transmission, any conversation, any expression. Love is always potent. It's always available. It's always present, and it's always able to move out and through you in a way that helps you experience your greatest life, your greatest joy, no matter the conditions that we find ourselves here on this planet.
And when we speak about love, we are not speaking about love in opposition to fear. We're not speaking about love in the avoidance or even the transcendence of sadness. We're not speaking about love as an emotion that has an opposite. What we are speaking about is the ability to release our attachments and identifications with the feelings that keep us struggling and surviving, is our ability to feel those feelings, not to try to take one feeling and make it into love, not to say instead of sadness, I choose love, but how can love embrace the ability to be sad? How can love help me overcome a fear of being afraid? And how can I allow myself to feel fear as a way of allowing it to transmute in an alchemical process as part of being aligned with divine timing, in awareness that we are always co-creating, not just when we feel positive states, and not developing erroneous superstitions that say if I'm feeling negative emotions, I'm creating from that vibrational platitude. But instead saying, I am not going from sadness to love, but bringing love to the sadness within me. I'm not going from fear to love, but bringing love to the fear within me. I'm not going from doing to being, but allowing my doing to emanate from a state of beingness. And in this, love allows all parts of self to be seen, all voices to be heard, and to help us integrate instead of fragment along our soul's highest timeline. And may it be so.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
I promised he wasn't going to do it.
Mic drop.
That was so beautiful.
It was.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So,
well, Matt, we've had you on with us a couple of times, so
Yes.
our audience knows you perhaps a little bit better. And what I would love to hear, I'm so excited about this because I'm so nosy and curious about all things love and romance. Like,
Yeah, bring it on.
Yeah, it gets to come on to talk about whatever. I also want to say, and what's your love life? What do you do? It's appropriate in this case. So
Yeah.
I would love to just hear from both of you where you were at and what you were doing, and then how you came together, what the story is of both of you becoming a we.
Do you want me to begin?
Yeah, why don't you go for it?
Okay. So becoming a we, I love the way that you worded that, because when I think about our love story and the journey, we were a we pretty instantly, and neither one of us were looking for it. So I was going into a brand new year last year, being open in a way I'd never been open. So I was working on my own personal journey of opening my heart to really discerning the proper people for my life story. I think I was going through, like a lot of people go through, an adjustment of friends, an adjustment of relationships. And I'd come to a place in my life where I knew that if I was going to be in relationship, it was going to be with someone who was absolutely the one. And there was no one else for me. It was the one or me, right? I was willing to walk the rest of my story by myself, connecting with my audience, connecting with the world, and doing the work. And so I walked into this event really early in the year and was thinking about how I just wanted to connect and build my business and meet new people. So I'm speaking at this event, and the first person that I meet speaking at this event is Matt.
How you doing?
And so everything, I would say the universe really delivered, because the moment I met him, who he was, him being another speaker, him being Matt Kahn, him being anything, any ideas of that completely fell away. The whole entire room fell away. The world fell away. I was literally in this cocoon, this beautiful quantum bubble, right? Where it was Matt and I was aware that I was standing in a space with my beloved. It was very obvious to me the moment we met. And so it just took us a minute. It took me a minute to really recognize that to remember that I was there to speak, first of all, but to move through that experience of what it's like to really be in this place where the universe puts you in a we. That's how I experienced it. I felt the universe said, okay, we hear you. It's the one or no one. So here he is. And it was so rapid, so fast that, right? It was so undeniable. Yeah.
I love that story. And from my perspective, very similarly, I had decided, my whole life I've been looking for my wife, my beloved. You hang out with your, 15-year-old friends, and they're all going around saying what girl in school they think is pretty. And I'm like, hey, who do you think we're going to marry? And I've been looking for my wife since I was very, very young. And, after a while, it gets a little, you feel like you're this casting director walking around, someone across the street. Are you my wife? Are you my wife? And my whole life I've been like that, and always a very hopeful, romantic. But I got to a place in my life where two things became abundantly true to me. One was I wasn't going to be in a relationship unless it was with the one. I had equally made that decision. And I had realized I had become incredibly allergic to complication, both in friendships, any kind of partnership, romantic, in my family, that my life is so simple. I serve a large audience. My life is dedicated to service. And the only thing that fits in my life outside of my dedication to my work can't be complicated, right? There can be things we all work through, we can heal, but it can't be complicated. And so I got into this really interesting place of my life is complication free. Everyone in my life I clearly communicate with and back and forth. And we don't always see the same way, but we know how to communicate. And that felt really, really good. And I came to a place of realizing that I'm not going to be in a relationship unless it's with the one. So what happened for me, and I think we both did this, and I think it's actually part of a teaching that I think will help anyone who's wanting to be in there with their one, is that I entered into a monogamous relationship with my wife before I met her. So when I would meet a woman and there would be an interest they were showing in me more than a friendship, if I didn't vibrationally or in every part of my body feel this legitimately could be the one, I wouldn't even take it beyond an acquaintance or a friendship, because I'd be putting them in a role that isn't the role to play. And I find that to be how we set each other up for unnecessary suffering, hurt, and complication. So I felt like I was living in a relationship where, unless I met my wife, engaging in anything romantic with a woman I knew wasn't my wife was like cheating on the wife I hadn't met yet. So I was living in a monogamous relationship with a wife that hadn't entered my life yet. And it got to a place where I thought, unless this woman enters my reality and I can just know on every level very clearly, I'm happy living single for the rest of my life, as Joy had made the decision. You know, I have a very beautiful life. I serve the world. I cook incredibly. My life is amazing. Sleep in the middle of my bed. And no, I sure don't anymore. But then when I went to this event where we met, I was saying to myself the funniest things. I was laughing at the idea of a relationship. I was like, there's no way in hell I want anything to do with a relationship. I was like, remember saying to myself as I was being driven to the event, in my mind, I'm just declaring, sorry, ladies, I am, this is done. I'm so over this. And I went to this event. We walk into this pre-breakfast, like there's a meet and greet for all the speakers. And I don't know what it was. Kind of felt like traffic school. I don't know. And I walked into this event and we meet, and I didn't know who she was. And again, the room fell away. Our energy fields merged. I felt the attraction. I felt the knowingness. I felt the energetic expansion. And it was kind of like, and you are now together.
Right.
And in my experience, it was like, wait a second. I had promised myself once I found the one, I'm going to take it so slow and mindfully. And this was actually record-breaking speed. So then there was this, like, we both knew, but then we had to kind of just, settle into it because it was such an immediate shift. It was literally like the moment we met, it felt like we were already in a relationship.
Yes.
And obviously we both want to be in a relationship. We love each other. There was, and I think as we got to know each other, there was a mutual education about divine partnership and how it actually works. And I've taught about it, but then you kind of get briefed by the universe as it happens. And we realized, divine partnership is attraction and alignment equally. And so we both, I think, I can talk for myself, speak for myself in saying, I'd never experienced equal alignment and attraction. I've had relationships that have either one or the other. And this was equal alignment, equal attraction, and as if we were already in a relationship. And it wasn't like that feeling people think they would have where they go, oh my God, I remember you from 10,000 lifetimes. It was just, here we are.
I knew you now.
I knew you now.
Yeah.
Exactly. We knew each other as our now. And from there, we went on an adventure of course, things are here to be healed, but not like triggering each other, like sometimes you hear about. And I think the reason for that, and I think this is something that I know both of us are very passionate about sharing with anyone who's either in a relationship they want to improve or wanting to open up to that kind of relationship, is we did not wait to meet each other to then scramble and become a we. We actually met already in a committed relationship. We just didn't know it was with each other.
Wow. That's so beautiful. You're clearly like two powerhouse healers. What is in store for you both coming together now?
I think that, us coming together created a mission. Both of us wanted something more for our careers. We loved what we were doing.
Yeah.
I would say we both very happy with the work we've been doing, making an impact and feeling fulfilled. I didn't have something missing in my story. I would say you'd say the same thing.
100%.
But there was a desire to express something even beyond what I was doing. Yeah. And so when we came together, there was a recognition of, I'll say definitely a deep recognition that the masculine and feminine energies that move between us created an experience and a wisdom moved through us that we weren't able to access by ourselves. Mm-hmm. Not that we don't have a balance of that masculine and feminine, but it created this cohesion, this harmony that allowed us to go deeper in our own messages. And as a result, what's happened is we have a more holistic understanding of the impact that's possible, which has pointed us towards wanting to really help healers, coaches, those who really want to be of service to the world. We want to help bring them into their own self-leadership, but then also leadership in the world. Right. So we're seeing our healing journey and our healing work really want to transform to not only help people engage in sacred relationship, but sacred relationship with their business, with their family, with their community. And to do that is to lead. And so we really want to inspire that as we're moving forward. Would you add to that?
And I love what you just said. And I think what I would add to that is, in my career, being very visible and very well known over the years, I've never seen myself as a guru. But I think I've been treated as one. And I always do with the greatest of my ability. It is my deepest intention to serve honorably, with integrity, and to help give people back their power. And there's a lot of people that I know will watch what I do and see how I do it and how can I be like Matt? And really my deepest intention is I want each person to be the best them they can be. I'm just the best me I can be. So when we came together, and I'm saying this because I would also state that in our industry of self-help, personal development, spirituality, it's really the end of this unhealthy guru model. And I don't think I ever really contributed to it, but I'm glad to help shatter the glass ceiling. And as we come together, and I can say as an aside, we came together, and from your admission, she moved fully into her feminine. I moved fully into my divine masculine. And I'm more of a masculine version of myself, which I love. And it's always been within me, but it's this balance of energies that really brought that to life. And so when we came together, we both really shared this mutual intention. And our deepest intention is that for every healer, channel, for every teacher, for every way shower, for every influencer, and whether you're playing the role as that in front of a camera, or you're a parent, or you're in a corporate position, really we're all light workers. Yeah. Whether you subscribe to that word or not, we're all leaders in our reality. And what I think that we both really want, and what the world's ready for, is instead of people just running around and gaining followers, it's time for us to actually help people become leaders in their lives. And there's been a time that we've all been on this journey. Oh, we're healing this, and one day we're going to be the leaders. And the healing seems to go forever, like peeling an onion, but like an onion at a certain point is over. And we want to move people out of endless process and out of endless micromanagement, and to see that your healing journey is preparing you for a leadership role in your own life. And we want to help give direction, guidance, and help inspire a new generation of heart-centered leaders in our world and in everyone's personal life. And let's completely shatter this model of a hierarchy or a guru, whatever, because the truth is that a true avatar knows that anyone they are serving is just in their own way stepping into their own avatarhood. So for us, this is about spiritual leadership training. It's about integrating and embodying everything we've learned. And it's about actually being the most embodied spiritual beings, which means being a leader in your personal life and in the world around you.
Do it. Let's
go.
The Onion. The next book. You should write that.
The Onion's over.
Onions over. Go ahead.
And we can speak, by the way.
Yes.
That's the other one. But we can talk from personal experience. We've both lived through Dark Night of the Soul 5 times over. We've both gone through total ego annihilation 5 times. We've gone through this. And there is a point where you move beyond. And I think part of the conversation is, if you've learned to use these spiritual pathways as a coping mechanism to deal with these stages, that also kind of creates this tendency where you are afraid to move beyond it because you're without that coping device. And so how do we learn to be beings who are so well, so embodied, and so inspired? We have everything to move into the world, but we actually don't need as many coping devices. We don't need as much of the things we needed before. And how can we start looking at the healing journey we went through as individuals as what we're actually helping the world move through? Yeah. I'm very excited about this.
Yeah. I think they can tell.
Yeah.
We are too.
We are. It's making me think when you describe your story and there's resonance and you guys come together.
Yeah.
You often hear people, I would say, especially in the, self-help, like new agey kind of thing, that you should do what resonates with you. That's a common thing you hear over and over. And I wonder, in a certain state of emotional, spiritual unwellness, what resonates with you, it might be very self-destructive. It might be somebody who's really going to hurt you. So I'd love to hear you talk about how should we trust what resonates with us? How do we know when we're healthy enough to trust that?
Share something?
Yeah, go ahead.
So and I love that we get to share both of our perspectives, but what's coming through me just immediately is, I think the question is, to what part of you is it resonating with? Meaning there's something that resonates with your patterns. And if you have a pattern of abuse, neglect, abandonment, what resonates with those patterns is what creates a repeating of those patterns. If it resonates with your heart, with your wisdom, with your highest intelligence, it's going to help move you into a different timeline, a different reality. However, what resonates with your highest wisdom is not what resonates with your wounding. And so, for example, there's this part of us that says, well, here's the vision. Here's what resonates with me. And then you start something new. And it's not easy in the beginning. You don't master it in 3 seconds. And it brings up frustration, difficulty. And the wound says, I don't like this. This is not the way. And so then people are in a position that says, it resonates with part of me. It doesn't resonate with the conditioned part of me. And they think they have to get both sides on the same side. And in fact, we don't. This is not a democracy. This is oneness. And so it's like being a parent where you say to your child, I understand this is painful for you because you're growing past an edge. I'm going to be here with you. I'm going to guide you, but this is not a negotiation. And I don't need you to change your viewpoint. I'm just going to be with you as you move through this. So we don't need to get the ego or the conditioned part of us to agree with the wisdom part of us. Those parts are 2 parts that stay separate in perspective. We just have to learn to discern between what I need versus what I want, and perhaps open up to one of the scariest realities in the spiritual journey, which is I'm open to what I need, not always not always leading with what I want, and not assuming what I want is what I need. And learning the difference between those things. Like, hey, I want to be in relationship. I feel like that is something that I want. And I feel like it's a need that is going to assist me in not taking me out of deficiency, but making me a better version of myself. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to fit every person I meet into that framework. And so I think it's really important to ask, to which part of me is this resonating? And starting to get onto the pattern of, there's a part that resonates with instant gratification. There's a part that's in it for the journey. There's a part of it that wants it now. And if it's not going to happen now, it might not ever happen. That's the wounded part of ourself. Can we start to feel into ourselves, feel the instincts, feel the feedback? Where is the feedback that comes from wisdom? How does the feedback of wounding show up at me? And learn to know which one is resonating and make the conscious decision of which one you're going to listen to. The wound always gets the love. It always gets the honor. It always gets the validation. But we love the wounded self. We love the ego. We love our personal self, but we don't necessarily overly indulge it by identifying with its viewpoint or assuming we have to act out its demands or desires as if that's a way forward.
Yeah, because I would say, that really comes back to your question in such a powerful way is, when do you trust the resonance? When are you healed enough to trust? And I would say you're never not well enough to trust the resonance. You just have to understand what the resonance really is and begin that journey of trusting yourself, of the inquiry, of the curiosity. And that if you've done a lot of healing, I would say even for ourselves, there's no place where you've done enough healing that you don't need to check in at that level and say, what am I really, what part of me is resonating? Because there's no badge of honor high enough that says, I don't have to check in and see what's resonating. I still need to do that work. So I think it's a habit that we begin and we land into and we carry with us our whole journey.
And to your point, as intuitives, channels who work together, work individually, we, a lot of people are under the assumption that when you get clear enough, you don't have to check in.
Yeah.
What we teach and what we know is what makes a clear healer is someone who always checks in, not to doubt. Like, for example, if I crave candy for dinner, that doesn't mean I'm unhealed. It just means I'm not having candy for dinner because I know where it's coming from. Or if I have I'm now becoming a new stepfather or whatever. That feels weird to say that. And if a child says to me, hey, we should do this, we should have candy for dinner, I appreciate that suggestion. And I would never shame them for suggesting it. But no part of me as a parent is going to confuse candy for dinner. So for us, a high-level healer is someone who always has a system to check their math, right? Just like a surgeon would never say, I've become such a skillful surgeon. Most of the time, I don't even wash my hands before I do a surgery. I'm just that good. These are steps you always take. And so a good practitioner always works their steps. And even though Joy and I have very sophisticated intuitive systems and they work lightning fast, it's always a process of here's what comes through, and I'm confirming on a value level the content. I'm confirming on a frequency level where it's coming from. And so what allows us to be so strong in our expression and as a couple, we're both tuning in to make sure that our clarities are matching or complementary. And we do that because we pride ourselves on not thinking we're clear, but we are in love with the process to ensure we're always being as clear as possible.
Well said. So I'm remembering this time last year, and we interviewed a couple who was like really enlightened, just like yourselves. And a lot of we got a lot of comments from people like loving it, but then there were people like, yeah, no one is actually like this in the world, and it almost like hit a nerve. And so my question to both of you is, imagine that there's people out there right now that are struggling and they're listening to this, whether it be in their relationship or individually. What can we say to them as the first step in getting back on track?
How would you start that?
Yeah.
It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question because, I think I've been there in my journey. Like, how do I get back on track? I had relationships before this one where it's devastating. It breaks you on the inside. You feel like you can't survive it. You feel like you can't move beyond it and have an incredible love. This story that I'm having, that we are having, is a story I wouldn't have believed was possible.
Likewise.
So I understand that. And I really believed before we met that I probably was going to be single the rest of my life. And I had come to a place of acceptance with that. And it was one of the most beautiful experiences I ever had. And I think that might be part of my advice, is come to a place within you where you're unwilling to not be yourself and fully comfortable with who you are moving forward. Even though you're in a relationship and you want to turn it around, you're always going to want to turn it around as the person that identifies as who you were when you entered the relationship, or who you're wanting your partner to become. And so really coming back to, I know it can sound cliche listening to saying, come back to yourself, but I mean that in a very deliberate way. Become so in love with being with you every day that you speak on behalf of that person who also wants that for your partner. And when you can do that in a relationship, then you can have a really genuine conversation. And I think conversation, connection, communication, this is how the relationship turns around. Can you communicate from the truth of who you are? And can you hear your partner from the truth of who they are? When you can do that, you can find out if you are intended to be together, if it actually is in the interest of both of you to be together and move forward, or if in the deep love you have for yourself and the other, you see that that's not where you're headed. And I think that's so important, is coming to the truth, to the core of what's actually occurring from the depth of who we are. Yeah.
I love that. And I think that in relationship, the reason why there's so much struggle, of the many reasons we could talk about that, I think that there are people who are not looking at whether they're actually partnered in the right relationship because they're too busy trying to make it work. And I think when you're trying too hard to make it work, it's just this dance of compromise between the needs between the desires of two different ego sides. And it's like, well, if you do these dance steps, I'll do these dance steps. And we see it in all sorts of different paths. And I mean this respectfully, but if you do this feminine thing and I do this masculine thing, if I go be the warrior and you go be the seductress, and I guess it will all work out like it did in the workshop. You know what I mean? And let's stop being the living script of another sitcom. Like, the truth is that, and I can say this truth from my perspective, which is I came from a beautiful family, but an emotionally volatile family. So I learned to over-explain as a form of communication, because I thought if I over-explained, I would leave no opening for an attack, and I always got attacked verbally. So I've had a pattern in my relationships of being an over-explainer in relationship with under-communicators. And I think that when you talk about relationships, there's going to be someone who plays the role of the over-communicator. There's going to be someone that plays the role of the under-communicator, where we have two over-explainers and two under-communicators. And that's actually the nuance of what becomes the cat and mouse game of imbalanced relationships, where any kind of partnership then becomes parent relating to child or brother relating to sister, even though we all have male and female energy within us, but there's always a polarity. And so I think that when you're partnered with your person, when there's attraction and there's alignment, right? Not just someone you desire, but who do you desire growing with? And not just someone you're good at growing with, but who you're also aligned and attracted with. There's a few different criteria. And when you do that, you naturally come together, neither over-explaining, neither under communicating. And it's just about, here are my feelings, and I share my feelings with her at the risk that I could say something that goes, wow, that's really, Matt Kahn? Really? Maybe you should do a repeat after me with yourself, really? And, she communicates with me, and we communicate in a very raw way. We both also know the difference between the indulgence of pain and a sincere sharing, because it's an intuitive thing. And we both have, when we first got together, we had some fears of like, whoa, either of us was not prepared to go this deeply into relationships so quickly. And we were afraid. And so we made the decision, let's be afraid together. So I wasn't trying to rescue Joy from her fear. She wasn't trying to rescue me from my fear. We actually let fear be an experience we shared together. Neither oversharing, neither under communicating. Just, can we be vulnerable together and just take one step at a time and let life show us what is? And in that, there is the equal risk that our relationship could have ended as fast as it came together. It could last the test of time. And every day, Joy and I could speak from my perspective. I know but we both do this, we talk about this, experience each day like its own lifetime together. A day begins, a day ends, and I wake up the next day and I have a whole nother lifetime with this beautiful woman. And all we have is this breath, this moment, this day, and this could be the span of our entire relationship. And we live our lives from that place. And it doesn't mean that there aren't things that happen, but I think the reason why it may not happen the way it might show up in other relationships is because of how we communicate versus oversharing versus under communicating, asking questions of interest. Sometimes I'll ask questions to Joy, and I'm asking because I'm learning from her, and vice versa. And so we're both learning together. We're both growing together. I don't have a point of view that is so right that it never has space for everything she's going to share. And I think that that's really what the anatomy of a surrendered relationship looks like. Is you're not just surrendered as, okay, this is the one, I give up fighting or whatever. It's surrendering into being an active participant, that I'm growing with someone, I'm growing in my ability to share vulnerably, and that it's not about, there's no more scary feelings. It's allowing scary to be there and honoring the fact that in the scariest edges of intimacy that either of us experience, the value as we get to cross those edges together.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I would love to just follow that up. So beautiful. I just want to make sure that not everybody listening just goes immediately and breaks up with our partner, So I want to just hear, is it possible to actually change within the relationship too? I knew it.
That was actually my question.
That's a great question. Before people go and break up, which is not the intention of what we're saying. But honey, how would you answer?
Well, I think we probably will answer in similar ways. There's an awareness or a journey that we've begun taking our clients through. And that's an awareness of where we're showing up transactionally with people and helping them, move from you do this for me and I do this for you, and then entering into the sacred space together. And I think within that, it creates an opportunity for any relationship to come to its fullest. And so I think that that's there for people who agree that they want to be in relationship together. If they're both pointed the same direction, if they're both, as Matt has said before in this conversation, we're equally attracted to each other and we are connected. So we feel this space of divine union. If you have the same desire in your relationship, then your relationship can expand and bloom into something quite spectacular. You can have a complete transformation. We've seen it occur in relationship after relationship. This is This is how we were intended to be. We were intended to be in these beautiful, divine, sacred relationships. So more often than not, there's a place for that in your relationship. It's the rare occasions when we're in a place where we're hiding from the one within a relationship that's not for us.
Right.
Yeah.
I would say, and I love everything you just said, I would say that when you're in a transactional relationship, it's I'm in a relationship because of what I'm going to get out of it or what I hope I get out of it. Right? Like if you asked a couple, like, what do you hope to get out of the relationship? And they might have a list of things, or what do you love about your partner? And it reminds me, like, I remember I watched a documentary once, and it was like interviewing couples from all different generations. They're interviewing this really, older couple. And she said an answer that in her heart, she went, and for me, I was like, made my, and the person said, so what do you love about your husband? And she goes, well, he is just such a good provider. And it just made me so sad, because it was, I always want everyone to experience the highest level of love. And when we're in transaction, it's, if I can only get this from my partner, if they could only be this way, then of course I'd be this way. And then the other person says, well, if you would only be this way, and it's all this stuff. Here's the thing that I think is very important. Yes, we're doing our inner work, and yes, we're doing work together. It doesn't always have to feel like work. It could literally come down to one question. And the one question is a value that never exists in transaction. And that is, how deeply do you desire, whether through the actions you take, the words you speak, or any amount of healing work, how deeply do you desire your partner feeling safe around you and trusting you?
Yeah.
And a relationship that can repair itself is one where no matter what they disagree on, the one thing we have to agree on is I want her to trust me, and I want, and vice versa.
Right.
It's hard when you're channeling words. And so I can speak about this from a masculine point of view, because that's what I bring in this transmission. From a man's point of view, right? There's sometimes this misunderstanding, especially generationally, between chivalry and misogyny. And misogyny, it can be very subtle in saying, I'm going to be the man that protects this woman. I'm going to defend her honor against all invasions. And that's what being a man is. And then that type of protector or rescuer winds up slowly but surely trying to control and micromanage her choices and becomes a prison guard instead of her person. So from a empowered masculine standpoint, what real chivalry is looking yourself in the mirror and saying, the closest threat that's probably going to come the closest to my beloved exists within me. And what am I going to do to make myself the safest man for her to feel trust around? Because when she trusts me and I trust her, our tantric energy, our passion, our romance is an eternal fire of outrageous proportion. And when that starts to diminish, it's because there's a breach of trust on some or both sides. So the real question is, whether you disagree on parenting or political or whatever it is, at the end of the day, do you want your person to trust you and them to trust you? And do you actually value that even more than the checklist you're hoping for them to fulfill? When we get there, that's when we're ready to actually transform the relationships we have or move into the relationships we're worthy of having.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have a follow-up?
I mean, I would say one thing that I can sense from a lot of people out there is that maybe at some point the trust shattered and then the checklist came out, and it's one of these things. So how can we right now guide people back into the place of, okay, I want to provide you safety again. I love you. I want to provide you safety again right now.
Absolutely. I mean, I could just share, and I'd love to hear what comes through you. I can say that, if there has been a breaching of trust, a shattering of trust, then there has to be a conversation. And it's not just, will the other person forgive me? Because I think that forgiveness is something that we earn, not something that is just freely given. But I think it has to be a conversation that says, for both people to say, what can I do that will allow me to regain and rebuild trust with you? What are the things I can say and act upon on a more consistent basis that will allow the equity of trust to be built? And then we go back and forth, maybe make a list or just share verbally. And then we each have to authentically tune in and say, is their request for what they need to rebuild trust with me matching who the kind of person I am aspiring to be in my own life? Or is it off?
Yeah.
Because the most honest conversation is to say to someone, I totally hear exactly what you need from me in order to rebuild trust. And I would love to be the person that gives you those things. And for some reason, it's not matching where I, as an individual, am being moved to go.
Yeah.
And so there are people that stick together rather than have that conversation. But that's the more noble way. That's the more honorable way. So what does each person need from the other, action-wise or word-wise, to rebuild the equity of trust that was breached? And spiritual people will say, well, Matt, you shouldn't need anything from someone else. It all comes from within. But we're talking about relationship where our inner alignment is externalized in a connection with another heart.
I think being able to voice it is you developing your own trust.
I do.
Right. So if you're not developing your own trust, then you aren't willing to speak it. But if you're willing to speak it to another, it's more about the statement of, this is the space I want to experience. This is what a space of trust looks like for me. And so I won't accept anything less than this experience of a trusting space. And by verbalizing it, you're walking into it. You're creating a timeline and experience for yourself where you're experiencing more trust. And if your partner isn't willing to be in that kind of space, that's important to understand. But if you are aligned, your partner is going to want to be in that with you. And they're going to feel, we'll come back to the word resonance. They're going to feel the resonance of what it is to be in a trusting space with their partner and want to be there. So you'll be able to identify that resonance or the dissonance that's present. I think it's so important.
And I think in honesty, which, of course, honesty would be the central theme in this type of conversation. I think a word that has a charge of woundedness, but actually has a other meaning of redemption, is the word incapable. A lot of us try because we have been made to feel incapable in some way and are trying to overcome incapability through some kind of overcompensation. And there's a wound in a relationship where we never want to feel incapable. But if someone has a need for their partner to fulfill, and you don't find yourself eager and excited to act that out, the most honest words are, I hear what you are desiring, and I am incapable of being the person who can honor that need, which is coming from a very high level of integrity, but most people's pride would get really triggered to think, I can't admit I'm incapable of something. I'm capable of anything. I'm capable of anything I set my mind to. But in this moment, it's not about what you could be capable of doing in the future. It's about what are you capable of doing and what is outside of your capability. And can you actually introduce your partner, yourself, or family members to who you are right now? Doesn't have to be who you're going to be tomorrow. It's not going to be a glass ceiling that limits you, but there's no better way to open up more of your capacity than to be completely real and raw about, here's who I am. I hear you. I would like to be the person that does these things for you. And honest to God, I don't feel it's within me. Yeah. Who has the audacity to say that? Who does is going to create relationships in sacred energy, or end relationships without creating more enemies and opening space to bring in the kind of relationship that they want. So I think it's a very powerful thing that you don't have to believe you're incapable, but to be honest about what is within your power to do and not to do, so that you are introducing your partner to who you are, not your potential, and freeing your partner of confusing your potential with where you are today. Yeah. And I think that is something that is so helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now we have the exercise for people to decide if they should stay in their relationship or not. So this has been amazing. Very, very powerful.
Well, yeah, I love all that. And the thing that I'm thinking of, though, is in thinking about you guys, you're both, you have very mutual shared goal point, both personally and in this relationship.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, and I know so many people in our audience who they're in a relationship, they're in a marriage, and the person, I mean, it might be truly an actually bad person, but it just might be somebody who is, the quiet provider, does all the basic stuff, but maybe doesn't go deep with them on an emotional level and doesn't have the same lofty goals. I know there's a lot of people, and sometimes married, so they've already made the commitment. So what would you recommend for someone who, especially if it's by marriage, is in a relationship with someone who's not really sharing the same goal point? Can someone make progress by just doing their own work and that create some changes in the relationship? What should people do who are in that?
Well, I can tell you what comes up immediately is thinking that your own personal work is going to help shift the relationship is a fairy tale. And I'll tell you what I think what makes us work so well, I mean, from my perspective, is that we are very good at communicating. Yes, we're both spiritual teachers, and it would seem like, we have the same goals. Okay, and I can see that. But I think the difference is that it wouldn't matter whether we had the same career ambitions or what we were doing. The reason why Joy and I, from my perspective, one of the many reasons why we work so well is because we have an ability to value what I will call the diversity of depth. So, for example, when we talk about our feelings, which it's not as often as people would assume, if it comes up, we do, but it's not as often. That's a deep conversation. When I'm weeks away from getting ready for a weekend filled with WrestleMania, and that includes planning out my shows I'm going to watch. What am I going to cook to make my little WrestleMania party? She may not be interested in watching it with me and actually watching what I watch, because I used to work in the wrestling business, so I watch it from a director's point of view. Long story short. So, but her interest in wrestling is taking an interest in my interest. She watches some television series that are like from different periods in history. I happen to not like historical shows of any degree at all, at all. But my interest in Honey, you just saw a new episode of Wheel of Time, and tell me about it. I'm taking an interest in the diversity of her depth. And so what I think is important is I think it could be so beneficial for a spiritual person to be in a relationship with someone who isn't spiritual, because then they're challenged to say, what's deep on their side of reality? Like if I collected stamps and she has never thought of how cool stamps are, which either do I. Much love to all stamp collectors. But if she took an interest in Honey, how did you find the Susan B. Anthony one today? Not becoming a stamp collector, she's interested in me.
Yeah.
And so I think the real thing is the illusion is thinking you have to be interested in the same things to have depth. And I think the spiritual illusion is thinking you have to have spiritual conversations all day to think we're deep people. Instead, we have to be engaged with each other. And even if Leah, you watch a show, or, Kyle, you watch something and it's different for both of you, Can you be interested in your partner's interest in something, even if you're not interested? Like when I talk to my family, they may talk about politics. I will sit there and talk with them about politics for 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not into politics, but I love them. And so I want to see them lit up. I want to see them excited. I'm going to make jokes. If I talk to my family member about football, I don't know a lot about football, but I'm going to talk about it because I love them. And so I think in relationship, it's not, can we get every person to be spiritual? Can we have these spiritual conversations? It's, is spirituality teaching us how to be engaged and interested in the diversity of individuals? And if we have that, we're in a spiritual relationship, even if we don't see ourselves as spiritual people. And that, I think, from my perspective, I so value from us. Like she'll sit there with me in her headphones and she's watching her show and I'm watching wrestling. And she just wants to be with me and I'm watching wrestling. And I'm like, thank God you're not watching with me. This is my horrible love. I love it. I hate it. All the things, when you're into something, you feel that way. But I love that she wants to know that I'm loving it and wants to contribute to me having the best experience as I do with her. And I think that's where we miss in the spiritual conversation. We get too much, I think, into the minutia of concept, and I need my partner to say oneness or do this thing with me. And the real question is, what can you stretch yourself to do with them? Like, what if my dad was a gun collector? What if my mom went with him to the range and shot a gun? What could that have done for their relationship? Instead of asking someone to meditate, what are you willing to do to show your partner that I am also interested in you? And would that open up your partner to maybe not think this is so weird and maybe open up to it more? I mean, that to me is where the authentic growth really exists.
Yeah, I think that's because we have shared values and virtues.
Yes.
Right. So I think I think there's a balance of that openness and stretching our hearts and connecting with others in this way. I love what you said about we don't need to be with a spiritual person. No. Sometimes I think that can be harder.
Oh, great.
Because we're in a different place in their growth. But I love that you didn't mention the Legos, but I do love Legos and he does not.
Legos. She loves Legos.
So, but I think recognizing that we have the same value and that we want to experience deep love together. We also value people and connectedness. And so there are things that we value together. And I think if couples can come together and identify, well, what is it that at the core of us that we value? And what are our true virtues? Where do we align from a moral compass perspective? And do we share those things in common? Because from that, you can become interested in knowing that Matt's values and virtues show up within that. There's a lot of nuance and depth to why he loves wrestling. People always, like on the surface, that sounds so not spiritual teacher stuff, but
so spiritual.
But it is. There's a beautiful depth to it that I wouldn't have known if I didn't go into it with him.
Yeah.
Right. And it's the same thing for my love of Lego, which, was so beautiful. When we first met, he started looking up conferences for Legos and it was just the most beautiful thing. I don't need to go to a Lego conference, but it was so sweet, his interest. So I think, when we have the balance of, we have something that binds us, it doesn't have to be goals. Our goals can be different, but we have to have a starting point, a shared starting point, because where we start is where we end always. And if we have misalignment in values, then we're going to end because of misalignment and values, or we're going to stay together because we're aligned there. So I think that's really at the core of it. And there's this beautiful romantic nuance of how we can deepen upon values without being the same person.
And just to add another aspect to it, when two spiritual people are in a relationship with each other, it tends to be this coaching each other, which is not what it's intended to be at all.
Right.
It should be a sitcom. But okay, just to give a real example, for anyone sitting here going, oh my God, another one of these spiritual couples and blah, blah, blah. I'll give you a real example. A real example is, since I was a kid, I never wanted to have children because I didn't like my experience of how it felt to be dominated emotionally in my household. And I didn't like the experience I had as a child. And I felt like if I didn't in every fiber of my being want to be a father, then a child deserves better. A child deserves a father who wants to be there for every second of that. And I didn't. From a very early age, I knew this. And I went out of my way to ensure on every level that I would never be a father. Even when I met someone on a first date, and I would say, do you envision yourself wanting children? And if they did, that was the end of the relationship. And respectfully, I would just say, it's not for me. And I know myself well enough to know that. And that was just, I was willing to take that journey. And I've had people, I've had children, you don't know what you're missing out on. I understand you just want me to be in your fan club. I get it. And I was all business, all career, serving the universe. And if I left this planet without children, I would have felt fulfilled in my life. And that's how I feel. I meet Joy. She has 2 adult children. One of her children has 2 younger children. So now I'm in a relationship where I go from I never want anything to do with fatherhood to now I'm becoming stepfather, step-grandfather. I'm also a cat dad and a dog dad. And, and the children are wonderful. They're adults, so they're not children. So I'm not a stepfather, not a stepdad. Maybe I'm a step dude. Let's make up a new phrase. I'm a step dude.
Very good at it.
But I've stepped into this experience of fatherhood that I thought I never wanted to know from. And I never realized how comfortable and amazing I'd be in this role as much as everyone told me, oh, Matt, you as a parent. And so here's the thing, that I never wanted that.
Right.
But my love and admiration and respect for Joy gave me the ability to want to take a journey and be open to what seemed like the opposite of what I wanted. What I will say to that in relationship, when it's the one, it's the person you can't push away.
Yeah.
So if you're constantly questioning your relationship, is this the one? It may not be. When it's the one, you'll meet someone whose life is nothing what you ever wanted it to be. And I am happiest I've ever been in my entire life. Happiest I've ever been in my entire life. I'm a stepdad. I guess I'm a step granddad, whatever that means. Like, I don't know if that means I have to start walking up to kids and pulling quarters out of their ears or stealing their noses. I don't know.
No,
but
please don't.
I wouldn't do that. You
just
get
kidding.
arrested in this day and age.
Well, my childhood was apparently.
I think no.
I'm kidding. I'm not doing that. But it's interesting how I was so clear, and I was so clear with the people, the women I wasn't meant to build this with. And the minute I met Joy, it changed because it's the one. Mm-hmm. And so my interest in being a stepfather, my interest in being a mentor, my interest in having children in my life, and I say that just verbally, they're adults, having people in my life that I can help and support. Mm-hmm. And it's not always easy. Huge, complex issues, real life stuff that can feel like there are fires in various aspects of life. And we deal with it together every step of the way. Yeah. And so that's real. And here we are. I would never want it any other way. And if her adult children were infants, I'd be saying the exact same thing. So, we have a shared value system. I'm interested in her. She's interested in me. And I think that's what makes all of this work on the deepest level.
Yeah, this has been such a beautiful conversation. I'd love it if we could just anchor it in with any mission you have. We have a large amount of people that are going into their heart for 30 days. Message do you want to send them off with?
Wow. Something coming to you?
I think what comes to me is everything is right within you for the journey you're on. Everything is right for the people in your life for the journey they're on. And it's an ability to communicate, to be open, and to be vulnerable that helps to reveal when our paths intersect. You know, as the famous quote says, we are all walking each other home, but we're not all walking each other home at the same time. And we're not all meant to walk together across the same city blocks. Mm-hmm. There are people that will be in your life for certain periods. There are people that will come in and out of your life from one neighborhood to the next. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, if we're honest with other people, we can make what's important to our journey and what's important to their journey of mutual importance. And then if someone needs to move on with their life, or you feel like you need to move on, we can actually feel grateful that we are removing any distraction from either person's life, so to give the person clarity. So in our relationship, I love this woman so deeply that if I was ever a distraction to her highest potential, my greatest gift would be moving out of the way. My presence or my absence are of an equal gift, because her growth, her happiness, and her truth matches what is most important for my life and my livelihood. And when we can make our needs and other people's needs of equal importance, and not two people waiting for the other people to value each other, but we start living our lives in honor of our truth and interested in knowing what the deepest needs other people are. Knowing that sometimes the greatest gift we give people is our presence, and sometimes it's our absence, whether that's what we want or not. And can we be that noble in awareness? Can we be that consistent in our communication? And can we try to not be so scared of being afraid, but spend as much time in a place that once felt so frightening, and realizing we're just settling into being able to trust a truth that will give us liberation instead of reminders of childhood punishment? Can we value each other and ourselves to that degree? And can we start with ourselves?
Yeah, I think that as you're opening your hearts for these 30 days, how incredible that your heart will walk you into this truth. Everything that we've said, you'll discover for yourself. Yes. That's what really is the beauty of all of this. Is it's something you practice in this journey, becoming aware and stepping into this, and love will always guide you. It never steers you wrong. So I think what a beautiful journey everyone's taking.
Yeah. And to also just remember that the opening of a heart is a self-educating process, which means you don't have to overthink your way through each of these steps. And it's not about trying to micromanage them like a checklist, that we are literally just reflecting what is going to be intrinsically known as you allow yourself to say, I value knowing my truth. I value speaking my truth, and I value wanting to engage the truth of others. And I want to be excited about someone else's interests, even if I'm not personally interested. And just that aspiration, that desire, that want allows you to be more connected to yourself. And when you're more connected to yourself in the presence of others, you'll be able to see where others are in their life, what they're healing, and how they're incapable or unable to meet you in that moment the way you want to be met. But as long as you're meeting them in a space of heart-centeredness, you're going to be more fulfilled by what you bring, what dish you bring to the potluck, instead of waiting for other people's behavior to nourish and feed you.
Beautiful. And lastly, how can our followers find you and all your amazing work?
I think your website's probably the easiest.
Yeah. I have a Sunday newsletter that I put out every week for free. We have a free documentary that people are enjoying. That was our gift to humanity. And so if you go to MattKahn.org, MattKahn.org. You can sign up for the newsletter, and that's the first place we're going to start announcing our joint teachings and things that we're both doing together. We're still right now in the process of actually imagining and bringing our two worlds together. Joy has an audience, I have an audience, and we're going to bring, we're going to have collaborative teachings. We want to honor both of our individual gifts, and we want to bring this together so that people wind up having more, versus less. And so we're still in the process of imagining that. It's becoming very exciting. And the way we're channeling what we're going to call our spiritual leadership training is such an exciting new edge for both of us. But if you sign up at mattkahn.org, you can be among the first to be a part of this new generation of heart-centered consciousness. And I'm just so honored to live my life with this beloved woman. I'm so honored to be co-parenting with her, and I'm so honored to have been able to have this time with you all and shared with you as we continue to birth this we for the benefit of the world.
This was just so lovely. And I'm so glad that you guys came together.
Thank you.
And however we can support you from here on out, we'd be happy to do that.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
Likewise.
Thank you both. And thank you everyone for watching. We love you all.
Sending love for everybody.
Heart Coherence family, we are incredibly excited to share with you that this event is the lead-up event to HeartMath's Global Coherence Initiative, which will be taking place in California, May
16th to 19th.
We'll be speaking at that event alongside Jack Canfield, Gregg Braden, Lynn McTaggart, and many other phenomenal guests.
You can attend in person. It's going to be an amazing retreat experience. You can also attend virtually.
Yeah. And so the real cool part about it is Leah and I will be guiding a meditation. And in that meditation, Roland McCready and other scientists are going to be measuring the impact it has on the field of the earth using random number generators that are all around the world.
Yeah. So we're going to be guiding a meditation where thousands of people send love and compassion, and we're going to measure the effects. So it's going to be pretty cool.
We really hope you will bring your energy, your loving energy, to join us to see if we actually can influence the field of the earth. So we love you all.